what felt like a very ordinary life. I was a mom of 7, and our kids at the time were 4 years old, all the way up to 19. So it was a busy household, and I was kind of the hub of the wheel, in the middle of our home, just getting everybody to where they needed to go, getting food on the table. So on a Friday morning, it's still dark out. I woke up to my husband's funny breathing, and I really wasn't even awake enough to perceive everything. I just had woken up enough, and I kind of instinctively reached my hand over and nudged him and said, "It's just a nightmare, hun." And I thought that he would turn over and fall asleep, and that we would wake up in a few hours to his alarm. But he didn't turn over, and as I woke up more to his breathing, I jumped out of bed and flipped on the overhead light, and I could see immediately that something was very wrong. He was non-responsive, and this had come from nowhere. We'd actually been away for, I think, 3 days together on a very, very rare, business. I had gone with him on a business trip, so I had seen him, and there had been no signs, no symptoms. This had just come from nowhere. But, I did all the things that you do in a crisis. I called 911. She walked me through CPR. Within minutes, the paramedics were there and they took over. And I thought, okay, good. He is in good hands. And I just remember pacing the floor out in the living room outside of our bedroom and just audibly praying to God, have mercy on us, have mercy on us. They took him by stretcher to the hospital, and I ran upstairs to tell our kids that I was gonna leave, and as I walked into the room, they were all huddled together in this dark, boys' bedroom on the floor crying, and I wanted to say, "It's gonna be okay." And I realized in that minute that I could not promise them that. So I prayed with them and went to the hospital, and it was not long after that I got there that they took me into that room you never want to go into and told me that they had worked on Dan for over 2 hours and they had never been able to revive him. And so that was it, like one night's sleep. Life just shattered in every way possible.
Right. Yeah, life never looks quite the same again after something like that. And so then you're hit right in the face with all the hard emotions of grief and the shock, and then people in their good intentioned words. And so often we hear this, what is really a myth, that God will never give you more than you can handle. And you said in your book, circumstances that are too much for us to handle make us face the reality that self-sufficiency and control are illusions, and it moves us to be utterly dependent on God. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yes. I mean, when things that we thought would always be there, even if you are trying to live a life of faith, we can really nurture some idols. And when the world just cataclysmically shifts around us and things that we thought support that we thought would always be there, even it could be a relationship we thought would always be there, a role that we had as a mom or a wife or a caregiver or a position in a job. When those things fall away, we realize it really reveals the idols in our heart. And 2 that were huge for me were self-sufficiency and control. The self-sufficiency says that I can handle this. And most days we might be able to handle a lot of what is thrown at our way, or we think we can, right? And then the control that if I do these things, if I manage my life just right, that I can control what happens. And when life falls apart, we see that that is not true. And for the first time in my life, I was utterly dependent on God. And as scary as that place is to be, it is the best place for us to be because God created us for not just to give him like a portion of our life or this one hard circumstance, but to be 100% completely and utterly dependent on him.
Lisa, one of my favorite things that you talked about that really started causing a shift in your perspective was when you discovered the power of intentional gratitude. Can you share how you practically laid that out in your journal and what it opened your eyes to?
Yes. And again, I was just desperate for the Lord because I knew if you had asked me, is God good? I would have nodded, yes, absolutely. The question was, is he good to me in this? And I desperately needed to see it. And so at one point, I just opened my journal, numbered 1 through 7, and began to look back over the day before and write 7 things I was grateful for. And the next day, I did it again, 8 through 15. And then I did it again and again, or 8 through 14. And I think in my journal, I'm still doing it. I'm in the 20 something thousands, which is just incredible. It is no testament to Lisa Appelo. It is a testament to God's incredible faithfulness to us and his goodness that is all around us. And if we will open our eyes to see it, the uncanny thing is that we see more of things to give God thanks for. There is always, even in the worst circumstance, there's a verse that says that we're to give God thanks in all circumstances. And I wondered, how in the world can I give God thanks in cancer? Or, you may be wondering, like in a marriage that falls apart, or in a chronic diagnosis, or for us, in a father who, is in heaven way too soon. And that verse doesn't say to give thanks for those things, but to give thanks in them. There are always, always things that God is always at work, and we can always see his hand of goodness in us and around us holding us.